Rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma, Rabbi irzuqni ilma. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'a wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinaba wa tawakkal ala wa kafa billahi wakila. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi subhanallahi al-azim. We'll begin off with the basics of what self-awareness feels like. And I like to describe it as this, that when we go through life and through all the pain that we receive, through all the relationships and experiences on our soul, because that pain feels incredibly big, because our soul is incredibly delicate and incredibly fragile in its beauty and its sensitivity. And it's incredibly, it's just sensitive, like it's a melting, sensitive nature that we have of our soul. Because that pain feels so incredibly big for it and it can't handle it, it begins to tuck away those parts which have been feeling pain or have received pain into a room within ourselves. And it feels like, for people who are, we call them psychopaths, when they collect trophies of their victims, we all collect trophies. And those trophies are the collection room, is that room of the soul where we hide parts of ourselves which have received and experienced pain. And we don't do that because it feels natural. We do that because we want to survive through it. The instinctive nature of us that wants to live and that wants to believe and that wants to hope and that wants to reach for light, that does not want to give up, that is going to look for even a flicker of a flame in the darkest of the world, even if there was a whole world that was engulfed in darkness. The nature of the human soul, subhanallah, is to still seek that one glimmer of light, even within it, even when it feels stupid or pointless or illogical. We would still seek it because that's in the nature in which we've been designed. And so we do that because we want to survive. We want to live and we want to hope and we want to love, in spite of all the wounds that we have received through hoping, through loving, through wanting to live. And so we put parts of ourselves in that room, in that trophy room, which let's call it the basement. And that's just the human nature. That's what we end up doing. And then as we begin to grow up, it feels like when we are walking, and it feels like an emptiness. If it's not a visual, but it feels like an emptiness. There's gnawing hole or this gaping hole that we're carrying. So it feels like when we're walking with an emptiness or a hollowness within ourselves. And no amount of food that this world has to offer in terms of relationships or of wealth, of any kind of worldly food does not fill that hole. And so we begin to then sit down and begin to understand or begin to realize that the kind of food that I want is not here. And the kind of missing that I'm feeling is not because of the current circumstances. There's something else. And that's where our awareness begins to be brought to that basement that we're all carrying within ourselves, which holds as trophies different parts of ourselves that we've lined up in different shelves, some behind even locked cupboards within that room. Although that room is locked forever, we wear an invisible key of that room around our neck. And that feels like depression. That feels like anxiety. That feels like a disconnected feeling. That feels like being ungrounded because we're wearing that invisible key around our necks. But even as we begin to go down those stairs and begin to reach for that basement door, and we begin to open the door and we open it, you'll see that some of the stuff that we've left behind, which are parts of ourselves, the hollowness that we're feeling is the parts of the self that we have left behind on different timelines, when we were 2 or 1 or 15 or 25 or 75, doesn't matter. We keep leaving parts of ourselves which have experienced pain in that basement. We'll notice some of them are open, like they're just there on the shelves for you to witness. It's easy to access them. But some, they're like small cubby holes with like locks that one cannot imagine. with like these codes, with those digital codes that you have of lockers. Like we've really like locked those up behind them. And that staying in that basement and discovering, unlock, first of all, discovering the fact that we have, there's an entire room of ourselves that we have lined within ourselves of parts that we could not take forward with us because they hurt too much and they were carrying too much pain and they would have slowed us down and would not have let us survive. But also deeper parts of ourselves that we now need to find locks for, to unlock from behind, from those cubby holes, so that we can open them and even look at those. And those are the ones which carrying the most amount of shame, the most amount of shame, the most amount of shame. Those are the ones that we have locked behind. So these are the rooms that we create, and we can spend, and we do spend, we are asked to spend the rest of our lives in discovery to ho gayi hai, but in awareness of that room, knowing that whenever something happens in our outside life, because let's call that basement one of the rooms of our inside life, and whatever happens in our outside life, if every moment anything happens in our outside life, big or small, walk down those basement stairs. Open that door, sit in the room, and see which part of yourself did you hide where, and what's the code to unlock it, so that you can resolve what is happening on the outside. Because, of course, you don't resolve it in you discovering your locked away part, it automatically resolves. It was only here so that you could or wanted to or would want to walk down those basement stairs. So that's one room on the basics that we're all aware of. And it's what giving away our power. It's what leaving parts of ourselves behind. It's the journey of self-healing. Here's another discovery that I received just about 3 days ago, 4 days ago. Subhanallah, because even if we have shut away that room from our awareness knows there is that room. And that room, if you were to tune into the energetic weight of that room, is a heavy room. It's a tie steel blocks to a rope and then let those steel blocks sink to the bottom of the ocean, and there is no way they would float weight of the room. It's a heavy weight. And it's interesting that even as we have shut away parts of ourselves believing that this is what will enable us to move forward, actually, because the weight of this room is so much, we would not have been able to move forward anyway. Subhanallah, we created, and I really, oh my God, I'm like, we created a connecting door to that room, and we created a parallel room. And for this room of wounds, there is a connecting door to another room, which is a room of ego. It is a room of all the, say we have taken wounds that we have received, and we've created beautiful idols that look pretty in the parallel room for each of those wounds. Subhanallah, for each of those wounds. And it makes sense because we are inhabiting a universe of duality. It makes sense because one cannot walk forward with this heaviness within ourselves without having an antidote to it. And this antidote for that room feels right. For a room of wounds, a room of statues feels right. It's the only kind of balance that would balance that room of wounds, because there's so much pain there. There is so much pain there that the only kind of room that would balance it would be a room of glittering statues. And for me, they are statues, but for you, it may be jewelry cases. However you visualize it, it may be glistening globes of light, fantastical, like you've stepped into another world, but each in a glass case or set up on a pedestal. And pretty, that's the common theme, pretty, to offset the ugliness of the room of wounds. For each ugly wound, we have a pretty statue. For each ugly wound, we have a pretty statue. And that pretty statue is the balm for that wound in our unawareness. And that entire room of statues is the ego room, each reflecting a pretty version of the wound that we have received. And now we feel in our unaware stage, now we feel there is some level of balance. And you know what this feels like? These energetic rooms that we've tuned into? There's ego room that we've set up in direct proportion, subhanallah, in direct proportion to the magnitude of our wound. This ego room that we have tuned into right now are the narcissistic behaviors, the narcissistic traits. That's what it is. Because what is narcissism? At the core of it, it is I feel very little, I feel afraid, I feel I will not survive through this. Help me. And that's what we say to ourselves. Help me survive through it. Help me if my voice has been stifled. This is my personal wound. If my voice has been stifled, give me a love for words which are so mesmerizing that I can sell anything, including that I can negotiate for my life if I have to. I will sell any part of myself. So just so that I can survive. And so to offset the stifling of my voice, I have created a gift of words in my unaware stage. To offset a wound where, as a woman, as a girl, because subhanallah, the wound on a woman's soul, the feminine wound and the masculine wounds is exactly the same magnitude, feel very different. So the wound on a feminine soul, say a little girl who has been abused sexually or physically or emotionally, that, and remember the soul, delicate, जिस तरह नरगिस का फूल है, जिस तरह चंपा है, उसको स्टॉक से करो, बहुत कम देर के लिए सर्वाइव करेगी, बहुत कम देर, हार्डी नहीं है सोल, because uski jo food hai wo is love. It's a hardiness that we expect is for you to thrive even when we pluck you off from your garden and from the kyari and put you in my flower vase. Now thrive. No, that's not the nature of the soul. It won't thrive. It'll wilt. That is the delicacy that I'm referring to, because in its strength, it is, is divine. But in its nature, it's a delicate soul which is hurt. Ah, subhanallah, it's hurt easily. And so that little girl's soul has been scratched upon. There is a drill machine somebody has taken and has born through her ruh. That's what abuse feels like to a little girl. And she is in love with the light of her soul. And black paint and charcoal has been thrown on it. That's what abuse feels like to a feminine soul. And she is in love with how her womb radiates, because she knows her womb is in connection to Allah. She knows it's the same womb. She knows that she carries the life force of creation, and that womb is violated. And she's this little girl who was in love with the radiance of her own womb before it began to bleed, even before it began to make itself manifest in its radiance, subhanallah. Even before then, she's violated in her womb. And the womb withers like champa does, like motia does. It withers. It's not hardy like a tuberose. And that's the masculine wound. And little boy, whose soul equally fragile, equally fragrant, equally radiant, is pushed and smashed against the wall. And the little boy's soul trembles. And you know what it does? Like a flower does when it feels threat, it begins to wrap up its petals. कि मैं सोने लगा, मैंने उठना ही नहीं है, मैंने अपने रैप कर लिए पेटल्स, देखो, ताकि मुझे अंदर मेरे कोर में दर्द ना हो. And in those wrapping up of the petals, he has also wrapped up his light. He has also wrapped up his divinity, because he wants to survive. He wants to live. It's his primal force, no matter what it takes. So that boy, that girl whose soul light has been drilled through, she has created a statue where she will, it is a forever lit statue, which is always radiating light. And she, it's a 100-watt bulb. That's what her statue feels like for that particular wound. And she wants people to look at it. She wants people to look at it and to be mesmerized by it, to be in awe of that light. It's like, my God, look at the light that this particular statue. This is the second wound that she's created in her, and what we call the narcissistic, the desire to be seen, the desire to be heard was the first one, the desire to be seen. Look at me. Don't you think I'm beautiful? Don't you think I am so gifted? Because अब तो मेरे पास words भी हैं और अब देखो मैं radiate कैसे कर रही हूँ. Second, for the little boy, he's created this statue of, I'm all shriveled up on the inside. I cannot let you look at my shriveled self. It's too delicate. I can't do it. And so what will I do? I will create an iron dome. And that iron dome will be magnificent because it'll be complicated. You'll have different codes, and you will be entranced by just making your way through that iron dome. Subhanallah. And that little boy has created his own shield over his own wound of his shriveled flower self. And that's his statue for his own wound that he's received. These are the people that we call narcissists, because there is an expanded sense of self that is projected out onto the world. A louder self, a shinier self, a glib self. Look at me, validate me, revolve around me. I am the sun self. And the wounds that it is carrying, subhanallah, all of these different forms of selves, this desire to be seen and heard and to be kept safe, to be protected. This is how the desire where the only thing we want to do is expand more in our limitedness. Subhanallah, you see, I want to expand more in my limitedness. And therefore, I will attach myself to whichever source I can find. And the closest source we ever find is our families or our relationships, our friends, our children, then our colleagues. I will attach myself to any source I can find so that I can feed off them. I can feed off them so that I can feel even more expanded in my limited self. This is the story of a narcissist. Which part of this are we not carrying? In this moment even, which part of this? Do we not desire to be seen? Do we not desire to be loved? Do we not desire to be heard? Do we not desire to be taken care of? Do we not desire to not die? Our entire life force is geared towards survival. So these wounds that we're carrying within ourselves, these wounds are called the narcissistic wounds. There is no other wound. In fact, the primary wound of the human soul, it's called the primary narcissistic wound, is I'm away from you, Ya Allah. You have abandoned me. You have sent me away from home. And you have given me the task of finding my way back home. That is the primary narcissistic wound. The secondary narcissistic wound is when we experience that awareness from our creator through our relationships, especially through our parents, But the secondary narcissistic wound is not just an experiencing of that pain. It's also a reaction to that pain. Because the secondary narcissistic wound that we are all carrying, and therefore we are all narcissists, subhanallah, is I'm carrying this wound where I'm away from home and I am in pain. And I see you, my parents, and I see you, my siblings, and I see you, my friends, who are also in pain. I want to help you. I want to take away this pain from you. But we can't help them. As children, we can't help. We try to save our mother, we try to save our father, and we have done that, subhanAllah. The more abuse we have felt from them, the more we have tried to save them. Isn't that incredible? The more they have and it is true, like there is a part of us, there's a part of us that is rooting for our abuser. Why? Because we recognize the primary wound of narcissism in them as well. Our soul recognizes, oh, they too are away from home. Oh, they too are hurting like I am. I recognize your pain. Let me try to help you. But we can't help them because they don't want to be helped. The only person we can help is ourselves, but we don't know that. We're too young. So the secondary narcissistic wound begins to develop in our childhood. We want to save our parents, sometimes from each other, sometimes from the world. Sometimes we want to save them even when they're not in the business of saving us. But when we can't save them, this deep sense of shame that we feel. I couldn't do it. From a very early stage. From a very early stage. And it is depicted with that, because I've experienced this, because I have been a practicing narcissist. So you receive that child's desire to save you from when a mother abuses their child verbally or physically, and the child is in deep pain physically because it hurts every part. It's a shredder that we've taken to the soul in that moment, subhanallah. And they feel it in every moment. And even while you are abusing them, they are drawing closer to you. Subhanallah. Unless, of course, you are physically abusing them and there's a little moment that they will take away from you, but they will come back to you. Even through our abuse of them, they want to draw themselves closer to you. हमारा ख्याल है इसलिए क्योंकि हम लोग उसके primary protectors हैं. Yes, but also they want to save us. They want to somehow in that moment bring our awareness to the fact that I know you're in pain. They know it. They know, I know you, and I want to help you heal. In that moment also, I was like, you're in pain. The only way you can give me pain is because you're in pain. I can feel your pain. I can feel it instinctively without words. I'm from you. I want to help you. I want to save you. Hold me closer. They're pushed away. They come back. Hold me closer. Pushed away. Come back. Hold me closer. We can't, as parents, find it within ourselves because, subhanallah, we have our own journeys. We don't want to be saved by them. They want to save us. And in those moments, they experience the secondary narcissistic wound and this deep sense of failure. Not only could I not heal my own pain, the little girl or little boy thinks, I could not heal my mother's pain. And so it is. And this so it is moment of decision that we make in our human selves is the beginning of our ego identity. Because then, if I can't, everything else that I will build from this point onwards, so the room of ego that we're tuned into in this moment, right, parallel to the room of wounds, the core vibration of that room of ego is shame, is failure, is the extreme shame that we are carrying of having failed somehow. And the stronger this vibration of shame, of having failed somehow, and not being able to save our own parents, knowing that we also have this awareness from our Creator, this primal shame is what we build the rest of the ego room on. Subhanallah. And as I was taken to this room, so you know how I was taken to this room? Through a muraqabah that I was doing, and this beautiful guide was facilitating from the Rumi Center. And he started doing the zikr of La ilaha illallah. And I had no idea what to expect from that zikr, except that immediately I was taken to this room where the contrast was, Madiha, your tongue or your heart is in the wird of Allah. And with it, look at the room that you have created. And each of the rooms that we would have created would be very particular to our own wounds, right? So as a woman, and as a woman with an extremely abusive background and an abusive life throughout, the room had to be equally ostentatious. The crazier and the more dramatic the trauma, the more ostentatious the room. Like I feel like Keechad Oh, let's create a ruby statue. I feel completely silenced. I will learn to sing the hymns like in the voice of the angels. So the contrast between the wound, and it's a direct contrast, and it's equal to the proportion of the wound. And in this moment, if you want, you tune into that vibration of your own room. ये आपका basement है, on your left, on the right is your room of ego. And this room of shame with beautifully gilded statues that we've created in parallel is the room that dictates most of our choices. This vibration of shame and lessness and failure is what dictates most of our choices. Why? And most of our decisions and most of our what we call, oh, my gut feeling. Where is your gut? Right now, your gut is here in this room. Your gut cannot feel the true feeling because it's acting from a wounded place. So essentially, we're all acting from a place of a narcissistic wound. We're all acting from that place. To assume that we are not is the illusion. To surrender to the fact that we are, and the second part of it, to surrender to the fact that I don't know how to shift it. How on earth do I even begin to shift my primary wound? Yeah, I'm away from you, Allah. Haan hai, I am away from Allah. Like, this is not my original home. So how do I even begin to deal with that grief? And then all the other griefs that I've accumulated throughout my life, I don't have that. So I'm saying La ilaha illallah. My heart is saying La ilaha illallah. I'm in that room. I look at these statues. There are two things that happen when we're on the self-awareness journey. And this was given as a gift to me by Allah Ta'ala, this particular muraqabah, because the space that guide had created was such a clear, beautiful, truthful place that my eyes could not be riveted by those statues. It was just the nature of the container that guide had created. No matter how glittering and how powerfully beautiful those statues are, my eyes could not be riveted because that was not the reason. The intention was not to look at this, to be engaging with the statues. The intention was just to bring my awareness to the fact कि मदीहा आपने पूरे statues ये खड़े किए हुए हैं और आपका दिल कह रहा है ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह. And that is the power of activation of La ilaha illallah, because it brings our awareness to all things which are not God, but we have given them the status of God. So we think shirk is Allah ke saath, like, do you feel into the vibration of shirk? Ego holds the vibration of shirk. Our ego originally holds the vibration of shirk, because to offset those wounds, we have created mini gods within ourselves. Because we need to somehow learn how to thrive, to survive. So we need those gods. Those gods could be our careers, those gods could be our children, those gods could be also our religion. Isn't that incredible? Even if we are Muslims, even if we are spiritual, there is a spiritual ego as well. हर चीज का ego है ना. तो वो gods तो हम लोगों ने खड़े किए हैं. अब वो सारे gods whisper. Because the vibration is of shame. And where is that original vibration of shame linked to? Iblis. The vibration is of failure. I'm not good enough to be the most treasured, the most honored creation of Allah, that He had to create another. That's the original vibration of failure. I'm not good enough. That's the vibration. That vibration is what we're carrying throughout. And so those statues have the power to whisper. And we call it vasvasa. But essentially, vasvasa is the whisperings of nafs. Nafs kya hai? Is a narcissist. Our nafs is a narcissist. Because narcissist only wants to survive. It'll look for the closest source that they have, attach themselves to it, feed off it. चाहे उनको blood चाहिए, nectar चाहिए, leaves चाहिए, उनका पानी चाहिए, वो लेंगे उनसे, because उन्होंने तो survive करना है. तो ये तो हमारा नफ्स की एनर्जी है, ये तो हम we are all narcissist and we all acting from a place of narcissism. So that means what is our reaching for divinity when we're saying, okay, we are now, we see both these rooms, we see who we are. And this question that Amna asked in the beginning before we started the session, how do you, like when you say don't trust yourself, this is what I mean when I say don't trust yourself. Look at the rooms that you're carrying. When we feel, what is not trusting myself, my trusting myself, not trusting myself means if I have a desire, my first question is this desire for my survival or for my thriving? And remember the difference between survival and thriving. Survival is for dunya. Thriving is always connected to Allah, for my soul. My body is not designed to, when my soul is on the road to thriving, my body automatically thrives. But my body on its own is not designed to thrive. My body on its own is only designed to survive. And so when I have received a desire, any desire, small or big, when we are in the practice of being tuned into these rooms, we know automatically not to trust it until we have received the guidance from Allah. Because it is extremely difficult, and very few, and by very few I have no numbers, but very few who we call the awliya, who we call beautiful guides and Allah ke jo log hain, jo Allah ke rafiq hain, very few have been able to master the energy. Not me, not, I don't know who, not you, no, like it's very difficult to be able to master from the very beginning, at the time of receiving the desire, knowing clearly, because you're so connected to divine vibration, knowing clearly whether it is haq or from your ego. Very difficult. And so, in the first instance, for people like us, in the first instance, when you receive the desire, do not trust it. It's like, मुझे नहीं पता ये कौन से स्टैचू ने इस वक्त मेरे से बात की है. So then what does it mean to trust your gut, to trust your heart? We don't trust our gut. We don't trust our heart, because in our gut and our heart, whatever feelings we want to associate with, my gut and my heart is in those, either one of those two rooms. Either I'm acting from, actually in both of those rooms simultaneously. Because I am deeply wounded, therefore I will speak and say and act in this way. Because I'm carrying these primary narcissistic wounds, I will want to survive no matter what it takes. Because I know that my auto reflex is this, then I will not trust it. When I know what my machine is used to do, I'm not going to trust it, because now I have changed my navigation. Na? I have re-centered my GPS. It's like मैंने नहीं करना, मुझे अपने soul path के ऊपर आना है, तो अब तो मैंने नहीं trust करना अपनी auto reflexes और auto pilots को. So the first instance is not to trust it. And then the second instance is, okay, ask Allah Ta'ala. In the same instance, I don't trust it. Allah Ta'ala, you show me what is haq. And then sit with it. Because Allah Ta'ala always sends messengers. Allah ki, I love this term so much, कि Allah की सुन्नत है. ये Allah की सुन्नत है. Allah Ta'ala messengers भेजते हैं. In the form of people, in the form of moments, instances. अब तो social media है, तो आपका ख्याल है कि खाली algorithm, because हर एक का बहुत beautiful balance है. तो जितना strongly algorithm designed towards darkness है, उतना ही strongly aligned towards light भी है. तो algorithm के through भी भेजते हैं. Beautiful, like it just, you kind of receiving the messages. But then that is when you receive the clarity. कि ये मैं अपने narcissistic wound से act कर रही हूँ, या मैं अपने inspired self से, which is Allah self से act कर रही हूँ. This is a guidance or a deviation. Deviation to distract me, guidance to keep me firmer on the path. That's it. So these are the rooms that we're carrying. In maybe if we're on the self-awareness journey, then perhaps we're more in awareness of these rooms, and we're not acting from a place of narcissism, but we're all still narcissist. But there are other people exactly like us, and they may be our spouses, our children, our friends, our parents, our whoever, like in relationship to us, entire governments, the whole world, they're also acting from the place of the same ego room that they've created. And if they are in our life, and that's where I want to, if they are in our life, then the only reason why they're in their life is this, because the statue in their room has exactly the same whisper as the statue in my room. There is a statue vibration that is being met. Now, theirs may be a very strong vibration and mine might be a low vibration but it is, I 100%, them and I have the same statue. Whether it's my mother, my father, whatever, I have the same statue. उनकी थोड़ी ज्यादा स्ट्रांग है, मेरी थोड़ी कम है शायद, but statue वही है. So, in my raising my finger and pointing at them and saying, you, Subhanallah, on this raising my finger, you, the entire frequency of judgment and invoking shame in the other person because you yourself are carrying shame, it is most beautifully personified of how this is, the antidote to it. It's most beautifully personified with this. I was listening to this lecture about our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he was talking about, the Shaykh was talking about how, as he would even point to somebody, he would never, subhanallah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, would never point to anybody with his finger. He would use his whole hand with his palm down, like a blessing also. Even when he would be talking, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to another person, even when he wanted to address someone. Because why? Because he is not in those rooms, but he's aware of those rooms in other people. Unke to shake sadr hua hai na. So he's aware of those rooms in other people. And he doesn't want to activate those rooms. A pointing finger, and I'm talking about my pointing finger to my own parents. I have done that physically as well. You mother, you father, you did this to me, you did this. पूरे मैंने अपने खाते खोल के उनके सामने रखे, मैं ये किया है. जो मेरे रूम कह रहा है उन्होंने बिल्कुल सही किया है. तो मेरी तो उंगली हजारों दफा उठी है अपने माँ और बाप के ऊपर, और उनकी हजारों दफा ऑब्वियसली उठेगी मेरे ऊपर. और मेरी उंगली तो है ही मेरे ऊपर जजमेंट की, फिर जाहिर है वही उंगली बाकी सारे लोगों के ऊपर भी जजमेंट पे जाती है. यू सी, इट्स अ स्मॉलर उंगली जो मैंने एक अपने ऊपर उठाई है पहले, बिकॉज मेरी शेम की वाइब्रेशन है. फिर मैंने उनके ऊपर उठाई है, उनकी शेम की वाइब्रेशन एक्टिवेट हुई. फिर हम दोनों की जब एक्टिवेट हुई तो जाहिर है जो भी हमारे हाथे में आएगा इस वक्त, अल्लाह उनकी जिंदगी आसान करे, चाहे वो हमारे बच्चे हैं या हमारे फ्रेंड्स हैं या हमारे रिलेटिव्स हैं, उनके अंदर तो शेम की वाइब्रेशन ऑटोमेटिकली रिस्पॉन्ड करेगी. So essentially, we are activating a circle of shame, and our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is the biggest and strongest light worker, the most high vibration light worker the universe has ever witnessed, upon ever will witness, subhanallah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he could see all the rooms. तो उन्होंने तो वो shame की vibration activate नहीं करनी थी. See how beautifully, strongly, somatically we are connected to our soul. A raising of a finger activates a shame vibration. How can we say that we are spiritual within and not in our bodies? It is all deeply connected. A raising of a finger, the same finger, and now look at it, the same finger that we raise for Shahada. La ilaha illallah. You feel into the depth of this moment. The same finger that we raise for Shahada, La ilaha illallah, is the same finger that points at myself for my shame and my failure, and then at others. Subhanallah. You see, this is what alchemy is. कोई नई फिंगर ग्रो नहीं होगी मेरे लिए. वो कमरों की जगह मुझे तीसरा कमरा नहीं मिलेगा. ये फिंगर भी यही रहेगी, वो कमरे भी वही रखेंगे. And now invoke your creator. This is the power we've been given. Be in awareness, stand a witness upon the rooms that you're carrying, upon the actions that you have chosen to do, upon everything that you're capable of, upon every depth of your darkness. Do not ever fool yourself into believing, subhanallah, do not ever fool yourself into believing that had you been in their place, you would have been less of a narcissist. Do not ever fool yourself into believing that. No matter how much of an elevated spiritual position you think you hold, because you just do not know the depth of your own wound. This is what I'm reminded of on a daily basis. Subhanallah. You don't know who you would have been had you been brought up in that household with those life circumstances, with those kind of statues that person had to build just to be able to survive. And in this moment, and this is what we call compassion, and this is what we want to reach towards, don't we? Oh, I want to forgive this person, say it's my spouse, say it's my child, and I'm dependent on them emotionally and physically. So it's my parent and I'm dependent on them emotionally and physically and financially. And I say, oh, I want them to heal. I want somehow for them to change. I want them to be a better version of themselves. Subhanallah. In every moment, They are as limited as we are. And the only difference that we have activated is to release any pretense, the last pretense of the fact that we are not wounded, to release the last pretense of the fact that we are not narcissists, and to finally say to Allah, which is our takbir, to say to Allah, Allah Ta'ala ji, I can't do Allahu Akbar in the beginning of Salah as well. Allah Ta'ala ji, I can't do it anymore. You take over. And when He does, and that is the gift that we are given, because we literally do not have the capabilities as psychotherapists, as soul medicine practitioners, as any kind of light worker. We do not have the capability with even within our own selves. Forget other people. हमें तो अपने बुत तोड़ने नहीं आते, और कितने हजारों बुत हैं, कहाँ से शुरू करेंगे? तो immediately surrender. Don't even try to engage with those both. Subhanallah, you don't even try to engage, because that's a trench, and that's a khai that is endless and depthless, and we don't want to fall into that. And so say, Allahu Akbar, I don't know how to do it, Allah Ta'ala, you do it for me. And the vibration that you're offered in that moment, and say you are now in that room of statues, which you've had to erect, which you'd had to build pedestals for, because that's the only way you could survive in that moment. And it's a glistening, powerfully beautiful, palatial room right now. That's what it feels like for me. In that moment, you'd notice that there's not a single window. It's beautifully lit with artificial light. It's beautifully glittery with artificial light. It's beautifully engaging because it's just pretty. But it doesn't have a single window. It doesn't have a single window. Smooth walls, smooth walls, smooth walls, smooth walls. And the moment you say, Allah Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allah Ta'ala ji, help me. In that moment, as Allah Ta'ala steps in, the only thing that happens, because our mind is gearing for a big magic show, but this is a different kind of magic show. The only thing that happens is there are windows that your eye could not see open, and the light begins to pour in, and that is enough. That is enough, because now in this moment, this time, yesterday, last night, I was sharing this. Okay, how do you I was sharing this that I was crying. I was just so painful. And because what had happened was 3 days ago, this room had been made manifest for me, had been brought to my awareness. It was already manifested within me. It was brought to my awareness. Did not know what to do with it. So I said to Allah Ta'ala, mujhse to nahi ho raha. And then I went around my daily life. And last night I'm sitting, and I knew us moment mein wo khidki khul ke light aa gayi thi, but mujhe nahi pata uske baad kya ho raha tha. And so last night I was taken back. I closed my eyes to sleep, and as I was grounding myself, I was just taken back to this room. And what is happening within this room in this moment is a conversation that I'm having with Allah Ta'ala. It's the same room, it's the same statues, but there's a different light as well within the same room. And the conversation that I was having with Allah Ta'ala in this is, what was this? In this moment, it'll be different like this. So it's a different conversation completely. But as I was taken to that room, what I want to share is, as I was taken to that room, and there was Allah's light coming into that room, along with the light of my statues, as Allah is my witness, I went closer to one statue, which is the most painful statue that I have. I don't have the name for it even. It's not like I don't want to share. I don't have the name, but it's just a very painful statue that I have. And that painful statue, I feel like it represents my primary narcissistic wound. Okay, Allah Ta'ala ne, I can't trust my Allah because He's let me down, because He sent me away from home. I feel that it may be the primary narcissistic wound. And it's been manifested in my generational life many times, where हमारी life भी जो हमने सोचा था कि अल्लाह के हाथ में है, और हमने at the time of death we had called upon Allah. Violent deaths, these are my generational traumas. Violent deaths, we had called upon our Creator, कि अल्लाह ताला come and save me, and He did not come. And so the primary narcissistic wound was amplified throughout generations, जहाँ पे हम लोग pretend करते हैं कि हमें अल्लाह के ऊपर बहुत तवक्कुल है, and because there is a statue ना वहाँ पे, तो पता है कि but एक inherent distrust है, एक inherent distrust है अल्लाह के ऊपर कि when it comes to the big things, He will not step in for me. And somehow all of us in my generation are waiting for those big things to happen. And because we are so afraid of that big thing to happen, because it inevitably does, we try to do a lot in the small moments to somehow gather more wealth that we can take to Allah at the time that the big thing happens, saying, believing कि मैं उस वक्त ये पोटली अल्लाह को दूंगी और अल्लाह ताला उस वक्त मेरी हेल्प करने आ जाएंगे. Somehow we're still in a transactional relationship with our Creator. All the sadqa that we do, all the sadqa jariya that we do, all the beautiful things that we do, all the things that we tell ourselves are such good things. Essentially, मेरी generations पोतलियां इकट्ठी कर रही हैं कि उस moment जो हमने दिमाग में decide किया हुआ है inevitable है, जहाँ पे अल्लाह ताला हमें वो test करेंगे जहाँ पे हमें अल्लाह की जरूरत होगी, और वहाँ पे वो हमारी help, हम उसको पुकारेंगे help करने के लिए, और वो मेरी help करने के लिए नहीं आएंगे, और हमें अपनी जानें बहुत प्यारी हैं हमारी generation life में ना, families में, वो जान की उस वक्त वो जान का moment होगा, लाइफ थ्रेटनिंग सिचुएशन, उस मोमेंट में नहीं आएंगे तो हम लोग ना फटाफट अपनी ये पोतली उनको देंगे कि अल्लाह ताला ये देखे मैंने किया, अब आप आ जाएं. इन दैट मोमेंट ऑल्सो वी आर नेगोशिएटिंग, इन दैट मोमेंट ऑल्सो वी आर इन अ ट्रांजैक्शनल स्पेस. बट दिस टाइम व्हेन आई वेंट क्लोजर टू द स्टैचू एंड द स्टैचू सेड टू मी, इट्स लाइक, what is, tell me which is that moment when you called out for me and I did not come, even when there was a life threatening situation. And subhanallah, I know that some of these things are so weird because these are not like, but subhanallah, what came in that moment was, I was not put in a life-threatening situation by my Creator. I put myself in a life-threatening situation deliberately, consistently, and then expected Allah to come and take me out of it. And this time He could not, because I had done too much upon my own self. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minas zalimin. So Allah Ta'ala said कि why आपने अपने आप को ये story क्यों सुनाई है कि मैंने आपको, मैं तो हर दफा आया हूँ. But when you consistently put yourself, subhanallah, it's like Pharaoh. जब आपने आखिरी मोमेंट में, जब आपकी हलक में, आपकी 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 हलक से, आपके आपके थ्रोट से आपकी रूह निकल रही है बाहर, और तब कहो कि आई बिलीव इन अल्लाह, वो नहीं होता. तो हलक से निकलने से पहले बिलीव करो ना अल्लाह पे, और उस वक्त like work with that vibration and really leave everything to trust Him. The same vibration that Hazrat Usman Ghani would. He's like, when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, what did you leave behind for your family, when he was asking for donations and the collections for the ghazwa, and he said कि मैं सब कुछ मैं आपके पास ले आया हूँ, and it's like, पीछे क्या छोड़ के हैं अपनी फैमिली के? कहते मैं अल्लाह ताला को छोड़ के आया हूँ पीछे अपनी फैमिली के. ये this is the vibration that we are always inevitably reaching for, but our primal wound and our secondary narcissistic wound stop us from doing so. And subhanallah, this is the vibration all of our people that we call narcissists are also reaching for. But we cannot help them. That little girl could not help her. That little boy could not help him. Their own mother and the father. They can't help. We can't help anybody. But what we can do, subhanallah, as we begin to know our own statues intimately, we can only begin to know our own statues intimately when we have access to Allah ka noor. उसके बगैर नहीं हम लोग अपने स्टैचूज को, तो आपको पता है अगर हम लोग अल्लाह के बगैर, and I've tried, I was sharing this with another person on the call, I've tried accessing the divine light through, because मुझे तो इस्लाम का गिफ्ट मिला हुआ है ना, so I can't speak for other people, I can only who don't have this gift, but मुझे तो इस्लाम का गिफ्ट मिला हुआ है. So I tried to access Allah की vibration through theta healing and through spirit medicine and through like Reiki. I could not reach for it. That's my journey. I was reaching for it. Of course, I was reaching for it. And all of these enabled me to reach for it. But when I did, and Allah Ta'ala enabled me to receive it in just a little bit, in the same moment, what He revealed was that as we're reaching for it through other means, हमारे statues are very intelligent statues. Because they're not dead statues. वो पत्थर के नहीं बने, वो information के statues हैं. Because we're all vibration, we're all information. So they are shape-shifting statues and word-shifting statues. They mold themselves to what I want to see, to what pleases me. And so, even in some moments when I say, oh, this is, I'm deeply connected, and I have experienced that, oh, I'm deeply connected to Allah Ta'ala, I was not deeply connected to Allah Ta'ala. I wanted that thing for which I wanted to be deeply connected to Allah Ta'ala. And so I told myself I'm deeply connected to Allah Ta'ala so that I can get that thing. When I got that thing, whatever desire that I had, I realized this is not from Allah because it hurts so much. That's how you know. That's how you know when you receive, when you ask for a desire that feels real. And even the journey of that desire that feels real is wrought with pain. And if you receive that desire, it still brings you pain. You know you're acting from your narcissistic mood. You know it. And that's how you know it's not from Allah. To reach this divine vibration of, we have to be able to touch upon the primary narcissistic wound, which is being away from Allah. And there is a rafa, a gentleness that the Ruh is created with. It is who we are, the gentleness of the soul, the gentleness of the soul, created in gentle love, is who we are. This rafa is within us. And when we receive the pain of separation from the giver of this rafa, from the breather of this rafa within us, the rafa shrivels just a little bit, but it's still there. When we receive the same separation, the same pain through our primary caregivers and through not being able to save them, the rafa is still there, but it becomes even more fragile, even more delicate. So the more wounded the rafa within ourselves, the more we would display narcissism. The more delicate the nature of the soul, the stronger its capacity to feel the wound is equal to a strong narcissist. So essentially, the strongest and the most powerful narcissists who want to survive have the most sensitive, the most delicate rafas ever, ever, ever. Isn't that so beautiful? And for us to be able to reach that, and that's us, by the way, that's all of us. Because the greater our capacity to feel, greater our tendency to be a narcissist. And remember, narcissism exists in two different ways. One is a more obvious kind, which is you can easily label them as narcissists, and that's a less clever kind. I'll say that's a less clever kind. There's a more sophisticated kind of narcissism, which is what we call, by the way, victims are narcissists as well. That's a sophisticated form of narcissism. And I've, mashallah, I've manifested both within myself. So one, which is the most obvious kind, is I'm wounded. I will scream, shout, hit, scream, destroy, soul, body, whatever it takes to make you hurt as well. Obvious narcissism, because you don't matter to me. And when you do matter, and those are another set of people, I will turn into a different version of myself because I still want something from you. So I will feed, because essentially I'm looking for my a life force to feed upon because I feel empty. तो मैं उससे भी आपको feed करूंगी. So that's a more obvious kind of narcissism. But then there's a more delicate, more sophisticated kind, which is the victim narcissist, which is I'm carrying this vibration of having received pain my whole life. I will not come towards you to feed from you, but I will bring you towards me so that I can feed from you. And this particular narcissist uses their wounds, uses their pain. In fact, think of it as this particular narcissist would go into, say that they are bleeding and they are in a sea of sharks. And they know that the thing that they need, the blood that they actually need, is of the sharks. So they will cut themselves deeper to be able to draw more sharks towards them, because the shark would think they're eating them, but they're actually feeding from the shark. It's when people that we see being stuck in what we call trauma cycles in trauma relationships. It cannot be that the person who's stuck in a trauma cycle is also not getting an essential life force that they need from their abuser. Because if they were not getting any food at a very basic level, if they were not getting any food, they literally could not physically be there. So they're still getting some sustenance from their abuser. So there is a there is a more obvious kind of narcissist, and there's a more sophisticated kind of narcissist. In both instances, there is a Rafa within them, which is fragile, and it has many layers upon it. So it can't be reached through the obvious means. And so it has to be tuned into and tuned into almost like an idiot, like almost like completely disregarding. And that's the soul medicine for narcissism within our own selves as well. We deliberately blind ourselves. Okay, let me rephrase this. For every person without any label, say they're a murderer, let's go complete extreme. For every person, there is a different vibration also available for you to tune into of that person beyond that of the murderer vibration. So what that feels like is that there is a soul light within you that can bypass all human constructs and all human decisions and connect directly with the soul light within themselves. And what this feels like, you're actually accessing a different vibration of that individual. And that is especially true when we cannot find ourselves to be able to forgive or have any sense of compassion for people who have hurt us consistently and physically hurt us and emotionally hurt us, who are our abusers. So it's very difficult to bypass all of those things. But there is a different vibration of the same human being available to us. And that vibration is activated through Ya Rauf, Ya Rahim. Because Ya Rauf, and it is almost as if there is a tornado coming. And you can feel the pressure of the wind, the air pressure right now, and how everything is in complete flux, right? There's a tornado coming. And there is a vibration that exists. It's almost like it exists in a parallel dimension to that tornado, which is that of a butterfly. So the direct contrast between extreme pressure of a tornado in the center of that moment and a parallel dimension of a butterfly, light and airy and fragile, but parallel dimension exactly in that same moment. Ya Rauf, Ya Rahim is the vibration of that butterfly's wing, and it is spoken of as such as well. Ya Rauf is a delicacy of a butterfly's wing that has the power to, because it's a parallel dimension, because it's not even trying to fly in the storm, because it's not even trying to make sense of their actions, it's not trying to justify their actions, it's not trying to use the mind, it's not using any logical thinking. It's literally a parallel dimension that's been activated in this moment. Ya Rauf is a parallel butterfly dimension. As the tornado is here, it'll go through and disregard, because it's a parallel dimension, it'll disregard that tornado does not exist. So it has a custom-made tunnel for it to go through the passageway of that person's heart in a way that passageway is only accessible to that butterfly, because it's a unique dimension of Ya Rauf, Ya Rahim. And subhanallah, by the way, these two names of Allah are exactly the names which have been used for his Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rauf and Rahim. So it's a parallel dimension. It doesn't have to even disregard the storm, because it's not the same passageway of the storm. No, it is activated through Ya Rauf, Ya Rahim. And I want us to, if you want to send this soul medicine to somebody who you're close to, and subhanAllah, the whole reason why this session came into being was this ayah in Quran. And the ayah in Quran is Surah Al-Furqan, and this is 20, ayah 20, which is, we have made some of you a trial for others. Will you not then be patient? And your Lord is all-seeing. وَكَانَ رَبُّكَ بَصِيرًا. So we are meant to, the little girl and the little boy who could not save them, are meant to first bring into awareness what we have within ourselves in this moment of those rooms, and invite the light of Allah to come help us illuminate those rooms. And as that light of Allah comes and helps illuminate those rooms for us, we are given this gift to be able to share this with other people who also have exactly the same rooms, different but same, and to be able to give them this medicine through the light that we have received in our own hearts. And so if we want to share this with the people who we call narcissists in our life, we the dua or the intention that we make, it's exactly the same. The intention that we make with Allah Ta'ala is, Allah Ta'ala, give me access to a different vibration of the same person. I want access to the different vibration. Essentially, what you're activating is a portal to be able to reach the rafa of them with traveling through a passageway that is only activated through Ya Rauf Ya Rahim, because it is made with utmost delicacy, utmost sensitivity, utmost awareness of the fact कि अगर इसको हल्का सा बटरफ्लाइज विंग क्यों कहा हुआ है या रऊफ को, कि इसके ऊपर तो हम लोग ऑइंटमेंट भी नहीं लगा सकते. या रहमान या रहीम इज एन ऑइंटमेंट ऑन अ वुंड. ये इतना फ्रैजाइल, लाइक आपका बटरफ्लाइज विंग की तरह फ्रैजाइल, इतना ये फ्रैजाइल वुंड है, और इसके पीछे राफा भी उतनी फ्रैजाइल है कि हम लोग तो उसको ऑइंटमेंट, वो तो फट जाएगी, तो गीली होके फट जाएगी ऑइंटमेंट, तो हम लोग तो वो भी नहीं लगा सकते हैं. तो हमने उसको, we have to travel through that passageway with Ya Rauf Ya Rahim to reach that place of the wound. That's it. Just reach that place, and it's a protected passageway. Ya Rauf Ya Rahim is a protected passageway. It's a gentle passageway. और वो जो हमने टोर्नेडो की बात की थी, इमेजिन करो कि अगर हम लोग किसी के दिल में जा रहे हैं इस वक्त, सुभान अल्लाह, एंड दिल वी नो, सदर के पीछे जो है वो हमारा है कल्ब है, और उसके पीछे फिर रूह है, और उसके पीछे सीक्रेट है, उसके पीछे एक और सीक्रेट, उसके अंदर सब कुछ है. सो जब हम लोग उसके दिल के अंदर जा रहे हैं, कोई भी सोल मेडिसिन देने के लिए हम किसी के दिल में जाते हैं, तो उसके दिल में वो टोर्नेडो आया हुआ है, बट उस टोर्नेडो के बीच में एक खूबसूरत टनल है, बिकॉज यू आर नॉट इवन कंसर्न विद द टोर्नेडो. उस टनल से हमने ट्रैवल करके पीछे 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 इनटू द टनल जाना है, जहां पे विल फाइंड लाइक अ स्मॉल डॉट ऑफ लाइट, अ स्मॉल डॉट ऑफ लाइट, क्लियर, एंड इट इज बिकॉज हम ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं या रऊफ या रहीम के साथ. तो जब हम लोग उस डॉट के पास पहुंचते हैं, ऑल वी हैव टू डू इज ऑलमोस्ट एज ए, बहुत जब हमारा बच्चा सो रहा होता है तो हमने खामोशी से उसके माथे पे, जिस तरह हम लोग हल्की सी we just kiss them on their forehead, like very lightly. That is the feeling with which we're touching that light. Like that, Ya Rauf Ya Rahim. ऐसे जैसे आपने बस एक आपके होंठ लगे हैं उनके माथे के ऊपर, बस of that light. That is all we're meant to do. And you will know, you will see, you will stand witness upon as we touch that light, the light brings itself forward for us. It's like किसी के घर आते तो कोई उठ के उनसे मिलता है, तो आप उनके घर गए हो इस वक्त, उनकी राफा है, उनकी रूह की जगह है, जेंटलनेस है, तो वो उठ के आपसे मिले. द लाइट कम्स फॉरवर्ड जस्ट लिटिल बिट, एंड दैट इज ऑल वी आर मेंट टू डू. सुभान अल्लाह, दैट इज ऑल वी आर मेंट टू डू. बिकॉज what that light does is that it, as it steps forward, as the light does, it begins to gently remember its own passageways. जिस तरह अगर हम लोग IV लगाते हैं तो हम लोग किसी वेन के अंदर लगाते हैं, which is meant to take that IV to a particular place in the body. What we have done is we have activated an IV in the rafa, of the rafa. and that IV knows which are the places it needs to go to now. हमारी जॉब नहीं है, बस हमने सिर्फ उसको याद कराना था उस through Ya Rauf Ya Rahim. वो activate हो गया, and it will flow wherever it needs to flow in the particular body of the person that you've given the soul medicine to. But after this, release them. That's it. That's all you had to do. Do it consistently, do it often. But our only job is to touch upon that light and then let it do whatever it needs to do in whatever and however it needs to do it. And that's it. And that is the potency of Ya Rauf Ya Rahim, which, and also the delicacy of it. Because essentially what we're trying to touch upon is the rawest wound we would ever experience. And for that, as we know, for that, we need to tread with utmost honor. Read this beautiful post recently. Somebody's given you access to the inner world. Receive this. What an honor. What an honor. In this moment, where you are, although we feel that we're in the tornado of their hearts, subhanallah, but what an honor that Allah Ta'ala has made this passageway into their heart for you to connect with the original source, with the original Rafa. What an honor to be inside their heart. What an honor to be there as a soul woman, soul medicine woman. What an honor that Allah Ta'ala has gifted you with. But that's it. That was your only role, because you're not the healer. Ya Shafi is Ya Shafi. You're not the healer. We can be an IV sometimes, we can be an injection sometimes, we can be a tube sometimes, or like a drop of rain sometimes, but we don't heal. There is one who does. So let him do the job, but do so consistently, knowing that this is our only job, and this is the same medicine we give it upon ourselves, upon our own hearts. Exactly the same, with exactly the same gentleness. क्योंकि isn't it so beautiful कि जब हमारे बच्चे को चोट लगती है, हम लोग कितने प्यार से उसकी बैंडेज चेंज कर रहे होते हैं कि उसको दर्द ना हो, हल्की सी भी खिंच ना पड़े, हम उसकी नजरों की तरफ देख रहे होते हैं कि हल्की सी ऊ भी ना हो. हैव टू डू विद utmost delicacy. अपने पर ठा करके, oh I don't have time, I have to make solid, ठा करके आधी बैंडेज लगी हुई, आधी नीचे. What? No. It's the same delicacy, because remember, Ya Rauf Ya Rahim is not your frequency. If you're traveling within yourself with the medicine for our own wounds of narcissism, then it is not you that's traveling. It is your creator who's traveling. And that journey is honored, and that journey deserves to be stood witness upon in its every minute detail. So the same delicacy with which we apply a band-aid on our child is how we give ourselves the same medicine. Which is why I was sharing with you that at the time that you receive the wound, or the awareness of the wound, is not when you decide to heal it. That's your ego saying, oh, you can heal it. No, you can't. You don't even have the ability. If I try to heal the wound at the time that I receive it, I would have created another ego statue, as Allah is my witness. And another ego statue, so you can say, oh, I'm a self-healer. Instead of healing that wound, I have created another ego statue, because the power of creation of that ego statue, oh, I'm a self-healer, is so powerful. Momentarily, it would work also, because the vibration is very, very powerful. ना हम लोग आए अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से, हमारी है divine vibration, हमारे अंदर है कुन फयकुन का, होता है ये, हो जाता है. So but वो momentary होता है, because बाकी नहीं ना रहता, बाकी तो एक है सिर्फ. वो मोमेंट्री होता है. तो उस मोमेंट्री में हमने ना सिर्फ अपने वोंड को मोमेंट्री हील किया, बट वो हील तो नहीं किया, हमने एक और स्टैचू मेकर, एक और फिर वोंड आ गया ना. द स्पिरिचुअल ईगो आ गया, हीलिंग ईगो आ गया, प्रैक्टिशनर ईगो आ गया, जो भी आ गया. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ वांटिंग टू हील द वोंड देयर एंड देन, say I can't do it, Allah Ta'ala show me, and Allah Ta'ala will guide you. Allah Ta'ala will guide you, will give you a clear medicine to practice upon your own self in you at the time that we are ready to receive it. It may be 3 months. It may be years. This is the second time I'm doing a session, and subhanAllah, it'll be interesting for me, myself also, to go back and see what was my first session about, because I've done this session on primary and secondary wounds of narcissism before with Ya Rauf Ya Rahim. That was about 6 to 7 months ago, and I'm being asked to do it again, because that's what I'm receiving again, because I'm receiving another layer of my primary and secondary narcissistic wounds to be released, and receiving the medicine from Allah Ta'ala. So it'll be interesting to see what that is, but that is, it happens at the time that we're ready to receive it. And what the reason why this Aya activated all of this for me is that I'm a test upon my own self. बाकी लोग तो बाकी काफी ज्यादा मतलब आया में तो कह रहे हैं ना, all your people have been sent as a test upon you. And Allah Ta'ala is the one, Ya Basir, the one who looks, who sees everything, the inside and the without world of you. But I'm also the one who's been sent as a test. And that's where narcissism comes in. And Ya Basir ki frequency is what I need when my awareness is brought on to how I have been used as a test, how I've been placed as a test upon myself, which is the ego part of me upon my room. Because I need that all seer. I need Ya Basir to be able to show me. And Basir, basara बाहर की आंख तो होती नहीं है, basara तो होती अंदर की आंख है. basara की तो बाहर की रोशनी से कोई लेना देना नहीं. बाहर की basara की तो रोशनी, the where it takes its light, this vision, the seeing is from the inner light or the light of the heart. तो basara को तो बाहर की दुनिया से कुछ लेना देना है ही नहीं. तो सबसे पहले तो मुझे या बसीर की जरूरत है ना. अपने नार्सिसिस्टिक वोन्स को अभी एक्सेस करूंगी तो आगे कोई मेडिसिन मिलेगी जो किसी और को, अगर मेरा दिल भी, अगर मेरी जुर्रत भी हुई देने की लिटरली मेरी जुर्रत भी हुई देने की. आप कौन होती हैं भाई? बिकॉज आई नो द स्टैचूज, आई एम नाउ अवेयर सी माई ईगो इज सेइंग अब हमें सब स्टैचूज का पता चल गया. नहीं भाई, सॉरी, एक्सक्यूज मी, आई नो 5% ऑफ द स्टैचूज ऑफ दोज रूम्स, अ लिटिल बिट. Thank you, much better. So one of those statues is like, look how much I can do. No, babe, you can't even do it upon your own self. आपको तो अपने कमरे के स्टैचूज के नहीं मालूम थे, आपने किसी और का क्या ही कर लेना. So, astaghfirullah rabbil alameen. I know, Huma, you've asked a question, so let me see if we want to answer this. And ये कैसे resolve होगा narcissism का garden? It is showing more powerfully than ever now. Oh, subhanallah. We don't dissolve it. We ask Allah Ta'ala. So if yours is a garden, that means Allah Ta'ala is the wind. So you wait for you to feel the wind and then leave it. Then leave it and see what you're then asked to do. Because mine was a room. Allah Ta'ala opened windows and came into the room with me. And that has to be enough. Because beyond that, mere bas ki baat hi nahi hai. Another statue of mine would tell me, you can sit there and you can alchemize each statue, and I don't want to do it anymore. Because that's my Buddh talking. I will do it. Who? Which statue is talking now? So, and the simplest marker for identifying a statue, every time you begin with I, simplest marker. Life is not complicated. Ego is actually not complicated. And because it's so strongly connected to the body, the simplest marker is all the sentences which begin with I. Please see which statue is talking. Simple. Astaghfirullah Rabbil Alameen. Ya Rauf Ya Rahim.